Welcome to Sparrow Vision with your host, Dr. William Sparrow.
Thank you. I am your host, Dr. Sparrow. Welcome to the Sparrow Vision Studio. Now, for those of you who do not know me, I used to be a truck driver over the road, and the last company I actually drove for was Warner Enterprises, where I was a driver trainer, which you don't know what that is. I train students how to drive big trucks over the road. I took my job very seriously and very professional. I would not allow anyone to go and test for themselves if I did not feel they were um, safe to drive going down the road. Well, there's a lot of stories out there about truck drivers getting even with other truck drivers. When you, um, back in the day when I drove a truck, there was a common thing to where if you're falling asleep and you need to stay awake until you can safely get off the highway, you will start an argument with anybody on the CB radio that will get your blood pumping and get your energy going that will keep you awake. So you would pick anything you can to start an argument, like calling somebody an idiot for the way they're driving, or just anything it takes. But the thing that you always want to do is when you get right to the destination that you're going to pull in and take your rest, you turn off your radio and you don't get back on. I say this for a reason because I allowed one of my cousins to go on a road trip with me. And I told him what the concept was about people arguing on the radio because there was a constant argument going all the time. And I told him, well, it could be the drivers, trying to stay awake to get to its destination. It could be a number of reasons, but that's just one of them. So I explained to him why truck drivers start arguments. So he would get on the radio and he would just start arguments. And I told him, I said, okay, now we're getting ready to go into a truck stop. So we turn the CB off. We don't get back on it until we get back on the highway. But that's how you can have fun going down the road. Well, when I went in to pay for my fuel, come back out, I had about 3 or 4 drivers around my truck beating on it, yelling all kind of percent, get out of here, we're going to kick your you know what. So I walked up to him and I said, hey, what's going on? Are you the driver of this truck? I said, yes, I am. Why are you? And I'm going, whoa, 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 whoa. It wasn't me. And I explained to him what happened. You better teach him or we're going to pull him out of this truck. You're absolutely right. The drivers were in the right. You did not turn off your CB radio when you were in the truck stop. You kept the argument going, and that's where it has to stop. So when I got in the truck, I said, you're banned from talking on the radio. That is a true story. Now, another story is, and this is also very true, and this is why I pulled this video up, a truck backing into a trailer. When you back into your trailer, you get as close as you can to where your trailer just barely lifts up off the ground, and then you shove your truck as hard as you can into the trailer. That connects the fifth wheel to make sure it's good and locked, and then you give it just a little bit of fuel to test to make sure that you're locked in place. Now, the reason I tell you this is another thing drivers do to get back at somebody that they're mad at is when they find out where you're parked at in the parking lot, they'll come up with a tool. It's called a fifth wheel arm, and they'll grab that fifth wheel locking mechanism and unlock it. It takes maybe 10 seconds, and sometimes even quicker than that if you're real good at it, to unlock the fifth wheel. And then when you pull away, your trailer drops to the ground, your airlines break. So it's a lot of hassle. First, you have to get a crane or a big tow truck to come and lift your trailer back up off the ground. You have to go and get those airlines replaced. And so that costs money. Truck drivers, especially for big trucks, they're not cheap. They're very expensive. But that's one thing that they always tell you is before you leave, you do an inspection of everything. You walk around, you get your tire tool, check your tires, get that thump, You want to hear a good thump to make sure your tires are good and aired up. Check your fifth wheel, make sure no one's pulled it away from you. Check your air lines, make sure they're good and tight. So I only say that because I've seen it happen several times where somebody was leaving out of a truck stop, they were getting ready to pull out of their parking spot, and bam, there goes their trailer. And people around be laughing, but it's no laughing matter. It causes a lot of damage, a lot of money, a lot of time wasted, and could make you late for delivering your load, which costs you money and costs you if you don't get your load on time. Dispatchers tend to give the good runs to people who can get their loads on time. And if you have a habit of not getting to your destination on time, they give you the crappy loads. So there's a lot of things going on to where it's always a good idea of checking your load before you leave. Now, another thing is going down the highway, when you're driving an 18 wheeler, when you're on the interstate, that is your actually brake, because all you have to do is pay attention to all your sides. You don't have to worry too much about things going on around you other than you're driving, unless you see something unsafe. The reason I bring this up is, as a truck driver, you should be always moving your head every 5 to 8 seconds, going from rearview mirror to your front, to your other rearview mirror to your front, looking at your gauges, making sure your gauges are all where they should be. If you notice anything out of sync, first thing you do is find you a safe place to pull over, get things checked out. That's why it's so important for your mirrors to always be at the angle where you can see, and try your best to watch people that are in your blind spots when they're coming up alongside you. You watch the color of the vehicle. If you don't know vehicles, you watch the color to make sure that vehicle has passed you before you go and do your lane changes. So that's one safety thing about a good truck driver being cautious about what goes on around you, is every 5 to 8 seconds you're moving your head, which also keeps you awake, keeps you mind focused on what you're doing, your eyes are focused, and you always look as far ahead as you can, not just on the nose in front of you. And I've even had students tell me that, when I ask them, when you're looking out, before we even take one notion forward, I ask them, what are you looking at? And I've had a lot of them tell me the nose of the truck to make sure that it's in the white lines. No, you look as far as you can. You use your mirrors to make sure you're in the white line and yellow line, so you don't go over your lines. So, and I've had a lot of people tell me they never thought about that. It's just safety procedures that I pick up through the years and through the training. When I first started driving a truck, I went to 2 different truck driving schools, and I've got certificates to prove this. I was the top in both schools, to where I'm safe. I paid attention to what I was doing. It's not only a driving test, it's a written test, road test, and I came out number 1 in both classes. I only say this not to brag, but to tell you I take my job very seriously. When I became a driver trainer for Warner Enterprises, they also put you through a lot of tests to see how you handle people that's not following your direction, how you talk to people, how you communicate. If you can communicate real good about what it takes to be a good truck driver, how to train someone. So all that is taking effect before they give you permission to be a driver trainer. So I've had a lot of experience, and I know what I'm talking about when it comes to teaching people how to drive big semis over the road. I've had a lot of students. I've had one student, dispatcher said, now you need 275 driving hours, not in a truck, but driving hours over the road before you can test to get your own truck. So dispatcher said, well, this woman was in a truck, and the driver had to go home for emergency. She only needs 5 more hours of drive time before she can test to get her own truck. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, well, then she should know everything that she needs to know to go and take the test and be safe. Well, when I picked her up at the motel, my first question was, do you have any problems that we need to work on? She goes, yeah, the shifting. That's not a problem. A lot of people have problems shifting big trucks, even your so-called drivers. If they're not paying attention, they have trouble, and you'll hear that, grinding gears or jerking the truck when they go to take off. You see it on the road all the time. So I told her, that's not a problem. We can work on that. What else are you having trouble with? She goes, well, the turning. All right. Another thing is that's also common for new drivers to learn how to take a turn safely without running over stop signs, cars, people. So that's also a good thing. I said, now what else? She goes, my number one thing I'm having trouble with is backing. Also, when you are a new driver, that's understandable because backing up a semi is paying attention, moving the steering wheel a little bit at a time to get where you're going, and always get back underneath of your trailer. So I'm like, okay, that's fine, but the things that you're asking me about or you're having trouble with, these are things that new drivers are experiencing. And they told me you have 270 hours and you only need 5 more driving hours to test. She goes, well, here's the thing, and I'll do you the same favor. I will do things for you if you drive my 5 hours for me. And I kind of like stood back for a minute. I said, now explain to me what your other driver did. She goes, well, I did things for him and he would drive for my hours so I can go and get my own truck. And the first thing I did was, I'll be right back. I went and called my dispatcher, said, get her out of this truck. She is not a truck driver. She doesn't want to be a truck driver. All she wants to do is have some place to basically call home, to say I'm a truck driver because she does not take her job seriously. And she is a big, dangerous person to be behind the wheel of a truck. So I explained to him what happened. Now, whether the other driver got fired or not, I don't know and I don't care. When it comes to driving a truck, I take that job very seriously. And put lives in people's hands, I will not do if I don't feel like they're safe. Now, the other thing is, I had this one guy, and he was over 6 foot tall. And when we would go to truck stops, they thought he was the driver trainer, but on my shirt it said driver trainer. No big deal, but that's just the way people thought because he was a big man. Now, when it comes to driving, I always start off, and when I'm starting off, I tell them you're not allowed to listen to the radio, no CB, nothing for at least a week until you show me that you're responsible and you can pay attention to what you're doing first. So for that first week, I'm basically the one doing all the driving, and I explain to them what I'm doing as we're driving, as we're hooking up, as we're fueling, everything. When it comes for them to get behind the wheel, first thing we do is we go to a big area at a truck stop if we can, and I watch them, how they position themselves, how they get prepared, how they just pretty much, getting everything comfortable for them. Now, when he would always start off, he would slam that foot down on the fuel pedal. And immediately the truck would stall and jerk. I tell you don't do that. Drive your truck like you do at home. You ease down on that fuel pedal until you get going, and then you give it a little bit more fuel when you need to. He goes, well, I don't drive. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. What do you mean you don't drive? He goes, I don't drive. You got a driver's license, right? He goes, yeah. I said, okay. Then how do you get around at home? He goes, my wife drives. All right, but you still drive around, right? He goes, no, I do not drive. Then why do you want to be a truck driver? Because my wife wants to marry a truck driver. I said, are you kidding me? He goes, no. There is no way in hell I'm going to allow you to drive my truck when you don't know how to drive. So again, I call the dispatcher. I tell them. They get him off my truck. What happened to him after that, I don't know. But there was no way I was going to allow him to get on that interstate going down the highway or in anywhere and try to drive my truck. No way. I'm not about to try to teach someone who does not know how to drive to begin with how to drive an 18 wheeler. No way. Now, the other one, I had this woman, and she was a joy to be around. She was very polite, very professional, and everything I was teaching her, she took to heart. Now, when it comes to Christmas break, that is the only time that truck companies guarantee you to be home if you want to go home is at Christmas time. That's the only time they guarantee you to be home. So during Christmas break, I dropped her off at the terminal and they let her go home. And when it come time for me to get back on the road, they had put her in somebody else's truck that was closer to her home from where I was. I got a call about a week later who she asked me if I would please call my dispatcher and get her back in my truck. I asked her what was going on. She goes, the driver they put me with, when they would go to get showers, he told her they're only allowed to have one shower and they have to take it together. That is a big no-no. You always have two showers if you need them. They never put you both in the same shower if you don't want to. So he lied to her about that. Then he lied to her about the bunking. Now, being a driver trainer, you always had two bunks, the top and the lower. And he always told her you cannot use the top bunk because it could fall down and hurt me in my sleep. So you have to sleep on the bottom bunk with me. And she goes, she didn't do that. She was sleeping in the chair in the seat of the truck as much as she could. And when I found out about this, I contacted the dispatcher, and they, whatever they did, but they would not let her come back in my truck because we never could meet up for her to finish testing out. I hope she made it because she took her job seriously, and she was a good person to be around. And every time I would let her get behind the wheel of the truck, I would watch her, and she did everything she was supposed to do to be a safe truck driver. Now, I've had so many stories, so many funny ones, so many comical. One of them was we're in Chicago, and this woman was driving the truck, and I told her, pay attention because we're coming up on the airport. And if you're not in the right lane, you're going to be going to the airport, and truck drivers do not allow to be at the airport. So, as we're coming, we're getting closer and closer, and I tell her, you're in the airport lane. You got to get over. She goes, I can't get over. Well, I look over at the mirror. There's nothing beside us. I said, why don't you got to get over. You can't drive in this lane because we're going to the airport. She didn't say anything after that. I kept telling her, stop the truck, stop the truck. So I can get over and take control. She would not stop. And before we knew it, we're at the airport in Chicago, Illinois. We get pulled over by airport police who made her stop the truck. I get out and I'm talking to the officer and I told him, she's a driver trainer. And then he starts yelling at me that I'm not doing my job. And I said, look, I told her everything I can do. Stop the truck, get over, stop the truck. I cannot physically jump over and put my foot on the brake pedal because you just can't do that. And so anyway, after a while, they had to get everybody away from us so she can drive around the airport to get back. Take it back. I'm the one that had to get over there and be embarrassed about getting back out of the terminal at the airport. But anyway, stories like that happen all the time, not just with me. That happen all the time. I only tell you this because these are some of the funny moments I've had in teaching people how to drive semis. It's not a fun job all the time. It is a fun job being over the road and going from place to place, seeing all the beautiful sights in our U.S. I am proud to say I've been to every state, every major city in the USA. Um, so I'm proud of that. I've been like I said, every major city in the USA, of course, except for Hawaii and Alaska, but in the North American, every place in the USA. So I've had my share of going through towns where big trucks were not meant to be going. When they built the city, they always had, smaller trailers. When I first started driving a trailer, way back in the 80s, they were only 45 feet long. Now they're 53 feet long. It doesn't sound like a lot of um, extra, but when you're trying to turn those big trucks into a town and street that's designed for smaller trailers, it can be a big hassle. So, anyway, I just wanted to share that stuff with you. Um, it was fun. I enjoyed it. I do miss driving a truck around. But if you like what I have to play, hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. If you have any questions or anything, if you know somebody who wants to get into truck driving, send me a message. Let me know. I'll be more than happy to talk to them and put them in the right direction. So you can always send me a message or give me a call here at Sparrow Vision Studio, 388, 765 388 2012. Until next time.